It has been roughly 2.5 months since his departure. They say time heals. Yet, the pain has only gotten deeper with every passing days. Though letting go would hurt just as much as holding on, there is nothing this fandom wouldn't do for the one who gave them meaning. The K-pop machine is a high-speed highway. It's a beautifully engineered engine designed for one thing: moving forward faster and faster without ever hitting the brakes. But on March 10th, 2026, that momentum hit a wall. Heeseung chose to stop. To understand his departure after 5 perfect years, we must look at the cold, structural reality of the modern idol industry. Calling a decision like this selfish, as a vocal fraction of the internet immediately did, ignores the truth behind the news. When the news broke, the prevailing fan defense suggested he could easily balance a high-profile solo debut alongside his demanding group promotions. They pointed to other idols who had managed the feat. But that narrative completely collapses under the weight of the physical and mental effects of ENHYPEN's schedule. The group has operated on a notoriously intense timeline: back-to-back world tours, immediate music video shoots, late-night sound checks, and high-stakes brand commitments without a single consecutive week of rest. For Heeseung, stacking a deeply personal, creatively demanding solo career on top of the massive 2027 Blood Saga global tour guarantees severe physical and mental burnout. The human body has limits, and the industry's scheduling algorithm inherently refuses to acknowledge them. And that's not even the most insane part. The definitive truth of his departure was already written out plainly in his official letter to the fans. Heeseung made it transparently clear that there was a clear tension between his personal work and the team. He wrote that he had his own projects he wanted to share, but didn't want to push forward only his own desires within the team. He eventually decided to follow the direction the company suggested to pursue those goals separately. Of course, it's worth noting that any official letter released through a major label like BELIFT is heavily moderated by the company. Many fans interpret that direction as a sign that his personal creative growth had simply outpaced what he could do within the confines of the group's specific concept. Furthermore, as the oldest member, he faced the undeniable clock of his impending mandatory enlistment. With his prime solo years rapidly closing, he is choosing to pursue his art over the group's momentum. He decided to let the butterfly out of the cocoon before the machine could pin its wings. Understanding the immense gravity of that departure requires looking past the current industry logistics to the human weight he left behind. In the summer of 2020, during the intense formation of the group on Island, Heeseung was already operating as the reluctant eldest brother who built the psychological safety net for the entire operation. He was actually the foundational gravity that kept the group grounded in reality. During the early high-pressure days of their debut, he used his quick wit to shatter the dead silences in the room. He took on the role of the funniest member purely to dissolve the crushing tension resting on the younger member's shoulders. He navigated conflict with profound empathy, always choosing the difficult path of connecting before correcting. When members like Sunghoon faced difficult periods of self-doubt, Heeseung sat down to understand his perspective completely rather than issuing directives from a position of his seniority. That gentle guardianship was recognized early on, even when the trainers were delivering harsh feedback. Heeseung was quietly helping younger trainees like Taki to rework their routines, which prompted Sunoo to quietly observe that he was like an angel. As the group transitioned from the screen to the global stage in 2021, this guardianship became the group's heartbeat. Knowing Nikki debuted at a highly vulnerable age, Heeseung routinely manages his own physical rest to stay close with him, ensuring the youngest would not lose his entire childhood to the idol machine. In the years that followed, the contrast between his massive fame and his grounded personality created a unique bond. By 2022 and 2023, fans were logging onto Weverse just to see his latest human quirks. They cataloged his soft-spoken nature, noting how he never raised his voice even in moments of intense frustration. Don't forget his undying love to ramen.
처음 이모네 집에서 라면을 먹게 됐는데 그 이모네에서 끓여준 라면이 진짜 맛있었던 것 같아요. 이모가 되게 잘 끓였고 그리고 어렸을 때 한 2년 동안 거의 먹었던 것 같아.
거의 매끼.
그러니까 매일.
They memorized his specific egg cloud ramen recipe and his profound love for simple comforts of preferring the slow romance of train rides over airplanes, and stating that the sound of the rain made his food taste better. He proudly showed off his Buzz Lightyear toys on Weverse Lives with the brightest, most genuine smile, keeping his inner child fiercely alive, and the way his eyes light up when he talks about things he finds exciting. As a deeply introverted person, he still pushed his own boundaries, once going out to play basketball with complete strangers just to experience a normal life. He engaged in gentle, playful defiance with fans over eating snacks on his bed and delivered romantic statements like, "I like you more than getting off work at 10 o'clock. The soft-spoken introvert stands in staggering contrast to the terrifyingly presence he became on stage. Heeseung possessed an unyielding, detail-obsessed focus that defined ENHYPEN's visuals. During the survival show era of 2020, he practiced his butterfly facial expressions with a ravenous hunger for perfection, mapping out every single microscopic angle of his performance to execute the routine flawlessly. And that locked-in gaze remained completely identical from his first televised stages all the way to their festival market penetration at Coachella in 2024. Being the absolute center gravity of the group, his heavy lifting extended far beyond learning steps and hitting moves. Throughout their 4-year discography, elevated the group's entire discography through his deep R&B inspirations and masterful vocal licks, traits he proved completely untethered from backing tracks during his appearance on Lee Moo-jin's service. He took control of the vocal direction during the recording of Bite Me to inject a calculated, masculine sexiness into the final track. He spent hours in the booth layering the entirety of Moonstruck and Still Monster with complex, flawless background harmonies that gave the tracks their atmospheric depth. He possessed a unique, almost kinetic ability to bring absolute thunder to a stage when the rest of the group was physically running on empty. He executed the momentum drop at the end of the Drunk Dazed bridge with such violent precision that it looked like a physical quake. From the very beginning, he anchored the iconic arrow shot high note in Given Taken, executed the sharp, dramatic body rolls in Fever, taking over center stage, and commanded the heavy hip thrusts of Paradox Invasion. He was the structural foundation of their live performances. Removing him from the choreography entirely unbalances the visual equilibrium of the group, leaving a kind of empty pocket of gravity that cannot simply be stepped into by another performer. Between the debut in 2020 and the departure in 2024, the group underwent a metamorphosis. During this era, Heeseung's role shifted from a protective brother to a cultural icon. This was the period where the Heeseung effect became a market force. He was the face of a new breed of idol. His stage presence evolved into something predatory and precise. Fans point to his Bad Desire performance as a pivotal moment of transition, a showcase of raw, captivating vocal power that turned casual listeners into dedicated followers. This dominance eventually reached its fever pitch at the 2026 D Awards. During the performance of No Way Back, Heeseung anchored the group's most intense choreography to date, delivering a level of dynamic energy that felt like a final, definitive statement of his skill. The 4-year gap was about an emotional crescendo. During the Walk the Line tour, the masks began to slip. At the New York stop, the Untouchable Ace became human again. He delivered a haunting, a cappella rendition of Loose that left the stadium in stunned silence, proving his voice needed no machine to back it up. Stripping away the visual spectacle reveals the devastating emotional wreckage left behind in the group's discography. The fandom now uses ENHYPEN's own music as a mirror to process the sudden stillness of his absence. Listening to tracks like That Feeling When and Orange Flower used to evoke the brightest, warmest eras of their commercial peak. They were anthems of youth and connection. In That Feeling When, Heeseung's voice once painted a faint summer sea and a sunset-colored wind, imagery that now serves as a nostalgic eulogy for a time that can never be reclaimed. And in Orange Flower, his promise that you just need to be there has become a haunting irony, as he was the one who was supposed to stay, and his departure has left the completeness of the song fractured beyond repair. The collective grief of the fandom echoes most profoundly through the heavier, anthemic tracks in their catalog.
Shout out, and this is my shout out. That's how there we are. We go shout, shout, shout when we're together. 3, 2, 1. 뜨겁게 외쳐. 하나로 커져가는 법.
Shout Out and Blossom. When fans listen to Shout Out now, they hear his ghost in the bridge. Fans often quote this line in comment sections, lamenting that the very voice that gave the group its authenticity is the one they have now lost. Similarly, in Blossom, his declaration that no matter how far apart we are, this voice alone will not be cut off, has become the fandom's mantra. They cling to his recorded voice as the only remaining thread of a connection that physical distance has severed. Every time a track demands a soaring high note or a stabilizing, intricate R&B vibe, the empty space becomes deafening. These tracks were the load-bearing pillars of the group's music identity. And don't forget Highway 1009. As a self-composed acoustic-driven masterpiece, also the first song he fully produced with lyrical contributions from every member. It serves as the ultimate structural irony of his departure. Again, the fandom clings to his penned lyrics, desperately echoing his own question back to him. Can you stay with me a little bit more? The very line he wrote as a warm comfort to the audience has become the exact lingering sentiment his fans struggle with every single day. In the comment sections, fans post his outro, "Stay with me forever," as a plea, unable to move forward. The song plays like a beautiful, agonizing time capsule of a vocal identity that refuses to be replaced, echoing out as the industry machine gears up to move on without him. As we look at the present reality, the remaining 6 members of ENHYPEN will absolutely find a way to forge a new path forward. They possess immense talent, extreme dedication, and the aggressive backing of a corporate structure that will stop at nothing to maintain its market share. The company will release new music, design new 6-member choreography, and sell out massive global tours again. But we cannot ignore the immense pressure now resting on their shoulders. Jungwon, Jae, Jake, Sunghoon, Sunoo, and Nikki lost a primary engine while the flight was still in mid-air. The company will release new music and sell out tours, but the mess left behind is a human one. These 6 men now have to relearn their own choreography, recalculate their vocal layers, and essentially reintroduce themselves to a world that are used to be a 7-man powerhouse. But as the dust settles, the tragedy narrative is starting to rot. The fan base is realizing it was an escape. He built a legacy alongside the brothers, but in doing so, he turned himself into a sacrificial pillar to his own legacy. Heeseung didn't steal their hearts just to abandon them on the highway. Wherever Highway 1009 ultimately leads, the audience is already sitting in the passenger seat, buckling in, and entirely ready to support the next strategic pivot together. Heeseung's departure was never about the end of a career, but the survival of an individual artist. The entertainment industry and upcoming groups will continue to produce aces and centers, but it can never replicate the soul of a person who poured his entire identity into a blueprint that eventually became too small for him. Choosing himself isn't selfish. The void he leaves behind in the group is massive and undeniable, but it is the exact shape of a legacy that belongs entirely to him. As the lights dim on this era, we are witnessing the liberation of a creator. The highway remains, but the destination has shifted. We miss him because he was the one who taught us how to feel the music, and now, in the stillness of his absence, we will finally learn how to hear the person.